Romania's Central Electoral Bureau has rejected the candidacy of pro-Russian politician Calin Georgescu for the country's presidential elections. 10 members of the commission voted against approving his candidacy, while 4 were in favor. Following the decision, Georgescu has 1 day to appeal to the Constitutional Court, which will issue a final ruling no later than Wednesday evening. Previously, the far-right candidate has secured first place in the first round of presidential voting, but his result was annulled. Romanian intelligence services claimed that the winning candidate may have received illegal support from Russia. On February 26, Georgescu was also arrested and taken for questioning by the Prosecutor General's office over the financing of his election campaign.
Calin Georgescu's candidacy does not meet the conditions of legality, as he violated electoral procedure rules and thereby undermines the fundamental obligation to uphold democracy, which is based on fair, honest and impartial elections in accordance with the law. The Constitutional Court has directly but unequivocally ruled that the legal conditions for registering Georgescu's candidacy were not met. Consequently, it is inadmissible for him to assume the office of the President of Romania following the resumption of the electoral process, from the Romanian Central Electoral Bureau's official statement.
Following the decision by Romania's Central Electoral Bureau to reject Calin Georgescu's candidacy, protests erupted outside the Commission's headquarters in Bucharest. Police set up barricades, but supporters of the pro-Russian politician broke through. Rioters threw stones, fireworks and bottles at law enforcement, set bushes and garbage bins on fire and overturned a car. According to local media, several police officers were injured, prompting authorities to use tear gas to disperse the crowds. In total, 13 police officers were reported injured during the clashes.
Romanian citizens were easily mobilized for such radical right-wing actions when a candidate emerges and advocates completely different policies, referencing Romania's history and certain social norms. Romania is not the wealthiest country in the EU, and it faces significant economic challenges. By exploiting these sentiments, we saw in the parliamentary elections that the far right secured 35% of the vote. Today, the situation remains complex.
In a statement to Reuters, pro-Russian politician Calin Georgescu announced his intention to appeal the Electoral Bureau's decision to the Constitutional Court. However, analysts believe it is unlikely that the court will allow him to run for president. Instead, his allies may put forward another candidate, with far-right politician George Simeon. According to Reuters, when asked about the possibility of his own candidacy, Simeon stated that he is not ruling out any options.
The real responsibility for this crisis lies with those in power who ignore the demands of the entire civilized world, which clearly states that any individual should have the right to run for office. Yet the government is pushing Romania towards economic and social disaster.
Experts argue that regardless of whether Calin Georgescu is ultimately allowed to run, his supporters will likely vote for another far-right candidate with similar views. Moscow is expected to capitalize on this opportunity.
I believe there will still be a candidate from the far-right party, and these votes will transfer to them. According to strategic forecasts, if this happens, Russia will certainly get involved. It always does. We can already see it actively working to destabilize Romania. Moscow will do everything possible to create political upheaval in Romania because it has numerous political and strategic interests there.
If Romania's pro-European coalition fails to retain power in the presidential elections, the country could face a prolonged political crisis, experts warn. They believe Russia will seek to exploit the situation through cyber attacks and voter manipulation. Reported by Katerina Bastun, Mikita Skoblikov, UATV News.
Far-right political forces in Romania held a large rally in central Bucharest, demanding the resignation of Prime Minister of Romania, Marcel Ciolacu. According to Radio Free Europe's Romania service, around 30,000 people participated in the protest. The rally was organized by the Radical Right Alliance for the Unity of Romanians, which secured 9% of the vote in the parliamentary elections on December 1, 2024. Former presidential candidate Calin Georgescu, who faces multiple criminal charges, joined the protesters. During the rally, Georgescu called for his reinstatement in the upcoming elections scheduled for May. Previously, Georgescu had won the first round, but his result was annulled. The country's intelligence services claimed the candidate might have received illegal support from Russia. On February 26th, Georgescu was arrested and brought in for questioning by the Prosecutor General's office regarding the funding of his campaign.
Georgescu is known for his pro-Russian and anti-Western views and for proposing the revision of Ukraine's borders in favor of Romania. His arrest and the subsequent criminal charges could signal Romania's intent to tighten control over pro-Russian political movements within the country.
Calin Georgescu faces 6 criminal charges, potentially leading to up to 25 years in prison. The decision on whether he will be allowed to participate in the election campaign will be made by Romania's Constitutional Court. However, the investigation into the pro-Russian politician and his associates continues, and the situation is developing unfavorably for him. The Romanian Prosecutor General's office has detained 18 people in connection with Georgescu's case. Arrest warrants have also been issued for the head of security, Horatiu Potra, his son, and another family member. Potra fled to Dubai before police searched his home.
Georgescu's arrest came amid a large-scale operation during which law enforcement conducted 47 searches at the homes of his close associates, including Horatiu Potra, who has links to Moscow's ruling circles, Romanian media reported. Weapons, ammunition, and large sums of cash were seized. Prosecutors found 900,000 euros hidden in a safe beneath the floor of Potra's home, Andrei Kovalenko, head of the Center for Countering Disinformation at the National Security and Defense Council of Ukraine, in a Telegram post.
The security of all European countries is at stake, said the President of France, Emmanuel Macron. He emphasized that Russia continues its disinformation campaigns. To counter this, Paris, Berlin, and 10 other EU countries urged the European Commission in late January 2025 to use the powers granted by the Digital Services Act to protect European elections from foreign interference, Reuters reports.
There is on our borders an overarmed and aggressive Russia. It is carrying out terrorist actions, massive disinformation campaigns at home and in Europe. If no one stops the master of the Kremlin, he will surely go to Moldova and perhaps beyond to Romania. Emmanuel Macron, the president of France, in an interview with La Tribune. The return of such politicians or parties or groups inspires other anti-system forces, whether far-right or far-left, to begin their struggle for power. The Russian Federation might provide financial, informational, and other resources to help them come to power.
Among the right-wing politicians Moscow has already established connections with, experts point to Robert Fico and Viktor Orban. Orban, as Hungarian journalist Szabolcs Pányi reported, wrote a letter to the President of the European Council, Antonio Costa, calling for the start of negotiations between the European Union and Russia over a ceasefire with Ukraine. Reported by Nikita Skoblikov, UATV News.